Okay, so for this week's discussion, post week 5, it is on collective bargaining and the union. And I am not super familiar with this topic or the union at all. So bear with me because I have my discussion typed out and I'm just going to kind of be reading from that and then going over the discussion. So I can't like rattle facts off like I usually do. Um, so unions are a little bit confusing to me, so I'm just going to do my best to explain my interpretation of what I got from this week's assignment. If I am like totally off and in left field, please feel free to comment below in my response and just let me know, and I can hopefully try to fix it for later. So before I go any further into the discussion, I was confused about how nurses unionized, so I thought I would just kind of go into that first and then go into the discussion. So your hospital does not have to be a unionized hospital for nurses to become part of a union. So basically, in order to form a union, the nurses meet and discuss outside of the workplace and off of the clock. You cannot talk about unionizing inside your facility. So, according to Sherry and Jacobs, unionizing typically begins when a nurse recognizes shared workplace concerns such as unsafe staffing ratios, dissatisfaction with management, communication breakdowns with physicians, or wages and scheduling issues. Once these issues have been brought to light, nurses can then contact a union rep and begin to discuss forming a union. According to the NLRB, once 31% of nurses sign the petition, then it can start being processed for the union. Once they get all that information, they hold the secret ballot voting cast, and then they count all the votes, and then if majority of the votes win, then the nurses unionized and the hospital basically has to agree to it. So the first question, what is the purpose of the union, the rights, obligations, key questions to ask? So according to the National Labor Relations Board, the National Labor Relations Act passed in 1935, and it was designed to protect employees' rights to unionize, join unions, bargain collectively, and engage in activities for mutual aid or protection. The purpose of this act is to promote fair labor practices, reduce workplace conflict, and balance power between employees and employers. So looking at this from the rights of the employees, so under the NLRA, employees have the right to form, join, or assist in a union, bargain collectively through representatives of their choosing, engage in protective activities such as discussing wages or working conditions, and they can also choose not to engage in union activities. Obligations from the employers. They are legally prohibited from interfering with, restraining, or coercing employees from exercising their rights, discriminating against employees for union involvement, refusing bargaining in good faith with a legally elected union member. And then obligations for the unions, they must represent all employees in the bargaining unit fairly, bargain in good faith, and avoid coercive or discriminatory practices. So, what questions do you want to ask when you're trying to see if you should unionize? First, you want to see like what problem am I even trying to solve? Is it the pay, staffing ratios? How will I know a union will even work? How much are the union dues? Has it helped in other hospitals? Like, what are the pros and cons? So, after reviewing the pros and cons in the literature, basically the advantage would be the pay increase is better. You have a more structured outline of your job description, and then you also have a union rep to help in case things go south. So if something goes wrong, it's not just you against hospital administration. You have somebody on your side that's dedicated to helping you. And then according to Chair and Jacobs, when you're looking at the physician side of it, collective bargaining agreement typically includes a structured grievance processes. So if physicians consistently fail to respond to urgent patient needs, nurses may have a documented pathway for the escalation. Also, according to Cherry and Jacobs with management, unionization allows nurses to negotiate policies collectively rather than relying solely on management discretion. And then safe working environments, obviously, is a big part of the union, like it's usually built into your contract. The disadvantages to this would be union dues are expensive. Your time off is now based on seniority versus like you just put in a request, you might not get it. And then flexible shift change, like you might not be able to last minute just change your shift. The reverse of that is because if you file a grievance against a physician, it's going to take longer to get resolved than just having a one-on-one conversation with the physician and or your management team. So then that can hinder the nurse-physician relationship. Management, you can't really go directly to the source to have something changed. You now have to go through your rep for that change, and you have to set up the meeting. And then safe working environments, there's always a possibility of a strike with the union, which leads to kind of that ethical concern of unsafe patient care. And then ultimately with the staffing, it's going to depend upon the hospital funds. Like, can they afford to pay extra PCTs? Can they have appropriate, staffing, equipment, and then just stuff that's outside of your union control. So looking just into communication, whether you're in a union or not in a union, anytime you're communicating a patient's status with management, a different physician or your coworker, you should always be using good communication. Always include an SBAR whenever you're going over patient condition. Make sure you're having a detailed handoff at shift assessment, good and accurate, timely charting, attending regular in-service meetings, doing daily huddles on your floor, and then using proper chain of commands whenever you encounter an issue. And then the last one, should a nurse fear termination? I don't know. After looking at all this, I don't think so. I think as long as you're outside of the facility and you're off of the clock talking about this, I don't think that they can. Under the NLRA, it states that it is illegal for employees to terminate or discipline employees for engaging in a protected unionized organization activities. If an employer retaliates, the nurse can file an unfair labor practice charge within the NLRB. So the takeaway for all of this, unions have been around for a long time, and I don't think that they're going away anytime soon. So I think it's best that if you or your coworkers are deciding to unionize, that you really look into everything and make sure you truly understand the pros and cons to each side of this, so that way you can make the best informed decision for yourself.